This video is going to help you set up your strategies for your Wednesday homework. Where does the recycling go? So let's read the instructions. After conducting some research, Miles wrote the following paper about the recycling process. He would like you to read his paper and look for any revisions he should make. When you finish reading, answer the questions that follow. So we know that if they're asking us about revisions, this is a revising passage, and we're going to be tested on arms. Okay, so the first thing we do for a revising passage is we go to the questions. So let's go to the questions. Number 12 says, what is the best way to combine sentences 6 and 7? So let's go ahead and go back and highlight sentences 6 and 7. The first stop for these items is probably an MRF, where the real recycling takes place. Okay. Whoops, that was sentence 6. An MRF is a materials recovery facility. The first stop for these items is probably an MRF, where the real recycling takes place. An MRF is a materials recovery facility. So let's look at our answer choices. Remember, whenever we're asked to combine sentences, we want to look for our patterns, and we want to check our punctuation. So let's look at the strategy of highlighting where these answer choices become different. The first stop for these items is probably a materials recovery facility, comma, or an MRF, where the real recycling takes place. The first stop for these items is probably a materials recovery facility, comma, an MRF. This is where the real recycling takes place. The first stop for these items is probably a materials recovery facility, comma, where the real recycling takes place, comma, an MRF. The first stop for these items is probably a materials recovery facility and an MRF, comma, where the real recycling takes place. Now, we have to figure out which one of these is punctuated correctly and has everything in the right place. And we want to first watch out for any IC, comma, IC, period. And we want to eliminate those immediately because that is a comma splice. Now let's set up question 13. Miles would like to add the following detail to the second paragraph, sentences 6 through 15. Where is the best place to insert this sentence? So he's going to add that to sentences to the second paragraph after sentence 8, 9, 13, or 15. So they want to know, should we add a detail after sentence 8, 9, 13, or 15? Okay, so what I have to do for this is to take that sentence and read it, substitute it where there's a star, and see where it fits best. Okay, so if it's saying eventually only glass items remain on the belt and they are dumped into its own container. This is time order. So we have to figure out where it goes in the process of something happening with the recycling. Okay, let's look at question 14. Miles is concerned that there is a sentence in the third paragraph, sentences 16 through 22, that does not add anything to the paper. Which sentence should Miles delete from the paper? So there's one of these sentences that doesn't really belong. So it's 19, 20, 21, or 22. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to highlight sentence 19, 20, 21, and 22. And I'm going to ask myself, which one doesn't belong? Now, number 15. Miles did not choose the most effective words in sentence 24. What is the best change for him to make in this sentence? Okay? So, we want to watch out for this. Do not choose words that mean the same thing. Do not choose answer choices that go from specific to general. Do not choose words that mean the same thing. Do not choose answer choices that go from specific to general. This is what I mean. Okay. Change items to things. Which one of these words is more specific? Items or things? Items is more specific, so we're not going to choose that one. Here is a hint. They probably don't want the word things in a paper. This is what I tell you to change in your own writing. We don't use things. We also don't use stuff. Okay? Now look at these words. Usually and often. These are synonyms. They mean the same thing. These are equal words, and so we're not going to choose that one. End up and wind up, or crumble to decompose. End up and wind up also basically mean the same thing. So we need to see, is something crumbling or is it decomposing? And what is the difference to choose the correct answer? Let's look at number 16. Last one for this passage. Miles is not pleased with the way he ended his paper. Okay, so this is his conclusion. He would like to delete sentence 28. Okay, he's going to delete sentence 28. And he's also going to delete sentence 29 and replace them with sentences that would bring the paper to a better close. Which of the following could best close the paper? So we're going to go to sentence 28 and 29. And sentence 28 says, so recycle today, do it for all of us. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to add something else. Okay? So let's look at some of our choices. So if saving energy and conserving the environment are important to you, keep tossing your recyclables into a designated bin. Your efforts are making a difference. If you believe that you can make a difference in your city, then you should recycle. It's a powerful way to make a difference you're hoping for. Do you believe that recycling is the most important thing you could ever do? Take a look at the research if you disagree. So starting today, learn about recycling centers. You'll discover that this fascinating topic, and you'll want to share what you learned with others. Okay, so you're going to look for the one that best restates your controlling idea and brings the paper to a close. Okay? So this one is one that you're going to have to answer after you read the entire paper. And maybe look back at the introduction, because we know that the intro and the conclusion bring the paper full circle. Now, if you do not need the audio, you can go ahead and stop the video and answer the questions and fill out the Google form. If you do need the audio, I'll begin reading it. Where does the recycling go? Every Wednesday morning, I drag a blue bin to the curb in front of my house. The bin is full of empty milk cartons, flattened cereal boxes, rinsed tomato cans, old newspapers, and empty soda bottles. A big truck comes by, and workers dump the contents of the bin into the truck. But where do the items go from there? What happens to the materials we recycle every week? The first stop for these items is probably an MRF, where the recycling center takes place, where the real recycling takes place. An MRF is a materials recovery facility. Once there, all the recyclables are loaded into a separator and the sorting process begins, although the exact process varies from one facility to the next. In some facilities, much of the sorting is done by hand. In other MRFs, machines do most of the work. Items move along a conveyor belt where machines begin separating the different types of materials. Paper is usually extracted first. Then powerful magnets pull metal items made of steel, iron, and tin from the group. Non-magnetic metal items, such as aluminum cans, are exposed to a magnetic field and a special electric current that repels them from the group and makes them jump into another container. Plastic items are separated out by an optical scanning device that pushes them off the conveyor belt with a blast of air. At this point, the glass and plastics require some additional sorting, but before long, all the recycled items are ready to be processed. Paper is stripped of its ink, squashed into a pulp, thoroughly washed, and pressed into sheets on large rolls. The recycled paper can then be made into paper towels, toilet paper, newspaper, and home insulation. Metals are heated to as much as 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit until they melt. The resulting liquid is poured into molds to form metal bars that can then be used to make cans, bicycles, paper clips, or even airplane parts. Can you imagine airplane parts made from recycled metal? Plastics are either shredded or melted and then remolded into lawn furniture, soda bottles, and baseball caps. All this sorting and repurposing isn't easy or cheap, but it's important. Items that aren't recycled usually end up in a landfill and are left to crumble. Many will take hundreds or even thousands of years to break down. Not only does recycling reduce the volume of trash in our landfills, but it also saves energy. In fact, recycling just one aluminum can saves the same amount of energy needed to power a TV for about 3 hours. So recycle today. Do it for all of us. Now go and answer the questions for this passage.